Ahoy there, me hearties! This be Captain Silverhook, and you're listening to the Two Old Pirates podcast. Set sail for an open sea of stories, tales, and some really crazy stuff. I expect you to like and subscribe, lest you be walking the plank. Ha ha ha!
Welcome to episode 152 of the Two Old Pirates. I'm down here in Rockport doing an episode with Vinny. Aloha, everyone.
Jumbo.
Anyways, these are going to be myths or beliefs that most of us grew up on. Either our parents told us, or we saw it in magazines or newspapers. We heard it from uncles, aunts, cousins, grandparents.
And these are a lot of things that you've probably been told, you've heard through the grapevine, through friends and family, that are just commonly accepted as being true. Well, let's just start with the first one. And I think a lot of people have probably just heard at some point, because it was one of those like famous myths where if you're up on the very, very, very top of the Empire State Building, and you pitch a penny off the side of it, it goes all the way down, however many stories it is, and it hits somebody in the head, it'll be like a bullet, and it'll kill them. If you go to the top, I've been there. I can source, been there. If you go to the top of the Empire State, there's all these signs that are plastered around that tell you do not do that. Actual, like, engraved
And that
metal
probably
sign, yeah.
that probably grew the infatuation of
course,
it could happen.
because now it's like, ooh, it's a naughty thing. But as it turns out, objects have a thing called terminal velocity.
Yes.
Okay, so the myth was that if it hits you in the head, it would like have so much
It would
impact,
like be
it would
getting
come all
shot
the way
like
down to like your lungs.
Oswald to
but-
Kennedy.
Yeah, no,
So,
but that's
you're not going to die.
Yeah.
You might get like a little welt.
yeah, you'd be inconvenienced.
Yes. All right, another one, that we have to have 8 glasses of water a day, which, of course, a glass of water would be 8 ounces. So they're saying that you
64.
should drink at least 64 ounces of water a day. Now, you think about some of your parents growing up, and they're drinking, like, huge things of coffee and stuff. There's a lot of water and that stuff. Or you might drink sodas, you might drink teas. I see a lot of, being a teacher, I see a lot of students filling up their things, and they're drinking a lot of water, which makes me happy that they're being hydrated. But the thing is, people that are my age, a little bit younger, mostly older, we didn't drink water. There was no bottled water back then. I remember growing up, and we had like milk for breakfast,
Yeah,
and milk for dinner.
yeah.
And then if you're lucky enough, you might be able to have a Coke during the day or something like that, or you drank out of the hose. All the plastic bottles that you see now, we didn't have those. So your mom would have had to get tap water and then throw some ice cubes in there and put it in the fridge, and that's what you would drink out of. One thing about drinking out of the hose was you always had to let it run for about a minute because hot water would come through and burn your mouth. So you'd let it run through, and then you get a refreshing drink.
Kids
But you
these
didn't,
days don't know.
yeah, you didn't sit there and drink and drink and drink and drink,
Yeah.
like 8 or 10 ounces. You just get a couple gulps from that because you want to go back and play. So the myth that you have to drink 8 is kind of a myth, because if you think about it, I made it here, and I have not had a bottle of water today. I've had tea, which is mostly water.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when they think water, you think the clear liquid you have to chug.
Evian.
Yes. You pay for the Fiji water.
Here's another one that I guess I'll dive into, because the previous one I did mention terminal velocity and science and things like that. Adding salt to water makes it boil faster.
My mom did it all the time.
It doesn't really do that.
I still do it.
It's one of those. If you're cooking pasta, you can add salt and like a little bit of oil to make it like not stick, but it doesn't make it boil necessarily any faster. It doesn't affect
But
that.
growing up, I just always remember my mom.
Oh, yeah,
She's going to make a
mine
big
too.
thing of spaghetti, put some salt
too,
in
yeah.
it, and then you'd see it
Put
on TV, or you'd hear about another person. You'd be at somebody else's house and stuff. It was just a common knowledge that you're supposed to do that, and it's not
Turns
true.
out
It doesn't
do anything.
do anything. So all those grandmas back in the past, they were liars. They lied to family members. Next one. If you didn't grow up with this, every single parent basically, especially moms, would tell you if you went to the pool, if you went to the beach, especially if you went to the beach, if you had a sandwich or something, you had to sit for 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Could
half an
not
hour.
go have fun,
Nope.
because guess what? You're going to cramp and drown. It's going to happen. You're going to die. And so what happened is there was generations of people that grew up around the water that were always told at the lake or at the river or at the beach or anything, the pool, you cannot swim for at least 30 to 40 minutes because you're going to get a cramp and you'll die.
The second your toe touches the water,
It's
that's
going to
my-
drag you in. We can smell the sandwich. The myth is of the idea that the blood in your body will constrict from places because it has to digest your food, but it doesn't have to do anything like that to the point where you should ever have a cramp. So I don't know how that started, where it started, but there are literally hundreds of millions of people over the years that have been told, do not go swimming because you'll get a cramp. It's just not true.
So on that note, talking about your blood being occupied doing other things in your body, here's something that's related to that. People heard that, if it's cold out, you can take a shot of whiskey or something like that, or drink.
St. Bernard's.
St. Bernard's, there you go. They had the little barrel on
Yep.
there that it makes you warm. So it makes you feel warm, but it's kind of an artificial warmth because it actually relaxes your blood vessels, your capillaries, and things like that, so that it increases blood flow, but it artificially makes you feel warm. It's the same.
It's the top of the skin that'll feel warm, but what the inner core.
The inner core is what's actually dropping because
still.
it's affecting your blood flow, and you are still getting colder.
Yes.
But it induces the same sensation of like when you're blushing, when you're embarrassed, and your face feels hot.
Yes.
It induces that sensation. People think, oh, I'm warming up.
Yep.
You're not. You're feeling slightly better, but you still should probably get out of the cold, is what you should.
So have you ever saw those old commercials of the cartoons with St. Bernard's where they'd go out and try to find a lost person way up in the Alps, and they always had that round thing? I don't even think they showed that anymore, really. That's
No,
like then they had a small vial of alcohol in there, so if you did find a stranded hiker or something like that, they could pop that sucker open if the dog didn't eat them. Because St. Bernards are big-ass dogs. And you could take a swig of that and be, oh, thank you, St. Bernard, for saving me life. And then, you'd still probably freeze to death with a dog. So, not to get religious, but there is a fact here. We were kind of all brought up, and this could go, 14, 15, 1600 years, ever since the Gutenberg Bible and stuff, when the first Bible was published, people have always kind of attached a certain type of fruit with the fruit that Eve took from the Garden of Eden, from the tree of knowledge. And people for years and years and years, hundreds of years, have thought it was an apple.
Gotta be.
Because it's just a common fruit. The thing is, if you read your Bible, nowhere in there does it say it's an apple. They think it could have been a
fig.
A fig.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did fig Newtons come from?
Somebody's ass.
No, Newton, Massachusetts. And my dad's from Newton, Massachusetts.
Here's one I think we've all probably heard. It was even a joke in like the movie Zombieland, I think, is that Twinkies do not have an expiration date. Like all food they do, like all consumable food they do. Twinkies were one of the first foods that were more shelf stable than most other things.
Most things would go bad faster, so they're like, oh, this one.
When Twinkies were new, it was like the inklings of preservatives and artificial things being put into food to stabilize them longer. But that's kind of a myth that's just kind of fallen out of favor these days, because nowadays everything's made of crap.
But like Vinny was saying, if you got bread back then in the 60s and you knew you had a 4 to 5 day window until it started molding, and then they said, oh, this prepackaged stuff, 7 months.
Yeah,
that's you can sit there for 7 months. You're like, what?
Like, it's cake. What?
The only thing that they had like that back then would be something canned.
Yeah.
If anybody knows me, they know that I love Asian food, especially pho. Vietnamese food, pho is my go-to. But the thing is that you always get this thing called a fortune cookie. And the thing is, it's usually always at Chinese food restaurants. And the thing is, I had always grown up hearing about how it was invented by a Chinese immigrant in like the 1930s or 1940s. And that was true. It was invented in the United States, but we found out even more. Who actually invented it?
It was a Japanese guy.
A Japanese. This is where it gets dirty. This is where it gets dirty.
He had
and
he wasn't a restaurateur. He had a confectionery business.
Yeah, like so he just said, "Hey, I could go and take this, throw it in there. It's edible, and you get like a
little mystery of the Orient."
Yeah, and the thing is, in the early 1940s, after Japan attacked us at Pearl Harbor, we took a buttload of Japanese Americans and took them away. They had to lose their businesses, their house, and everything. We stuck them on these internment camps out in Arizona and Utah and Nevada and stuff. And guess who came in and took that? The Chinese, who were not taken away because they were from China, which was our ally in World War II, and they swooped in while all the Japanese were interned by our own country, and they took over the Chinese. That's why it's called a Chinese fortune cookie now.
The first bootleg.
They came in and stole the whole thing. I had no idea that it was a Japanese person.
So here's one that is kind of one of those fears of new technology. whenever laptops were becoming a thing, we're recording one on a laptop right now, but having the portability, the computing power, but being able to take a computer with you anywhere you went, and in a laptop, because you would just sit there and pop it open on your lap. But you doing stuff on a computer, it gets hot, it heats up. So people had this fear that if it's sitting in your lap and you're a man, it's kind of close to the twig and berries. So they were like, that could be affecting your sperm count, your fertility. It could, if there's radiation from the computer, it could be damaging your DNA. And so there was all these
testicular cancer.
It's as it turns out, the computer gets hot.
It's just hot.
There's no radiation from it. I mean, literally, it is radiating heat in literal terms, but it's not like nuclear radiation. No. You don't got Chernobyl in your lab, so you're fine. As it turns out, it doesn't affect fertility or whatever. I mean,
so this is one that if you live by the beach, especially here in South Texas, if you're watching this and you're from Rockport, Port A, any of those places like that, and you live by the beach, Ingleside, Aransas, we have all grown up with at least once probably in our life getting stung by a jellyfish. All right, man-o-wars are worse, but jellyfish are bad. And if you got stung growing up, the number one antidote always was
Lowry's meat tenderizer.
Meat tenderizer. You pour some of that tenderizer, and I'd see people with their tenderizer. If any of the kids get stung, get some of that tenderizer on it. And that was for decades. People used that. And then somewhere along the lines, somebody came up with an idea that you should piss on it. And I can't sit there and say urinate, because it's just, if you're at the beach and somebody's whipping stuff out and pissing on your leg, and that has been there for decades now, where it can't be right, and it's 100% a myth. It does not help the sting at all. I understand you're going to say it does, but maybe that's just a placebo effect in your head of getting peed on. But it does not help anything. They say the best thing, in case you get stung by a jellyfish, is to pour hot water on the actual...
Not boiling water.
Not boiling. Water. We don't want you to scald yourself. Does anybody even use that term anymore, scalding?
Probably not.
My mom used to be like, don't turn it on too hot, Eric. You'll scald yourself.
It's one of those Scrabble words as far as I'm concerned. So here's one. This is two sides of the same coin. So you've probably heard that if you got wet hair, you walk outside and it's cold, you're going to get sick. Probably. I guess don't go out, you'll catch a cold.
Yep.
Temperatures don't cause a cold. It's actually viruses. It's bacteria, cold virus. So that's how you get sick. But if you are getting sick, or to prevent getting sick, people always say you should take a lot of vitamin C. They put it in everything because it's everywhere. Actually, I mean, vitamin C does help up to a certain point, but it doesn't actually, past a point, stave off illness. It's one of those things where if you take too much of it,
it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, you'll work it through your system and you'll piss it out. Hopefully you got somebody who's been stung by a jellyfish you can use it on.
Okay, Vinny talked about the laptops earlier, and he's talking about how it could possibly cause like cancer or different things with your fertility and stuff. There's another thing growing up. I remember when we got our first microwave, and you'd pop stuff in there, and of course the wattage back then or whatever they would use and stuff is nothing compared to what you have now.
So the transformers were pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, but it would make things hot, and you're like, oh, this is really cool and stuff. But then people started like mumbling to each other, well, it's a microwave, so there's radiation. So if you use this too often, you're going to catch cancer and die. Proven that the radiation that is used, the microwaves that are used, are not the same as like how he had said in a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, it's called ionizing radiation.
Yes, it's the exact opposite.
Alpha, beta, gamma particles and things like that, which a microwave does not emit.
No.
All right, so if I were to name a state and say Georgia and say, what do you associate with the state of Georgia? Like what would be like the main thing? Kind of like how California is the Sunshine State. They grow a lot of oranges there. Georgia's peaches, obviously. The Arizona tea, the Georgia peach tea, stuff like that.
I think Ty Cobb, one of the most famous baseball players, is known as the Georgia peach. Yeah. So Georgia is really synonymous with.
So they got to grow the most in the country, right? No. It's actually California.
The thing is, California, I can sit there and, when me and Vinny saw this, I was like, you know what? I can see that. Yeah.
So the second one.
It's got to be the second one. Georgia's got to come in second because it's the peach state.
Yeah, well, it's New Jersey, actually, which
is
like that big compared to California.
That's where all the mafia and stuff are. So New Jersey, second most peach producer. So
it's got to be.
It's got to be the third one. It's got to be top three. Got to be top three. So we got Cali, we got New Jersey on two sides of the continent, and what's third?
Pennsylvania. George.
So who in Georgia is lying? They're lying. I don't know where Georgia is because we didn't see past that. It could be like 14th or something.
I just thought it was 4th. I just know it's not. I figured it's probably got to be. At this,
I'm hoping.
It's getting
hoping and praying. Hoping and praying.
higher.
And coming in 4th, Oklahoma, where nothing grows.
We find out that Georgia's the 50th state in terms of. Actually, it's below like Puerto Rico.
Actually, we have the Solomon Islands. Yes. Then we have Wake Island.
Micronesia's above all these like territories you've never thought of.
Then Atlantis. Yeah. And now Georgia.
And then.
All right. So here's the deal. This is a big one. Because if you know anything about the modern man, they all say if they're lifting weights, they got their truck lifted up, they got that full beard, they got the Punisher sticker on the back. They say, I'm an alpha male. I ain't going to hang around with any of these betas. Or they'll have their sticker, the gun saying, take it from my hands, I dare you, and stuff.
We don't call 911.
The thing is, the alpha male took this term from the idea that in the wild, amongst wolves, that there's an alpha wolf for the
leader of
the pack. And as scientists have studied over the 40 or 50 years, there is no alpha male. There's moms and dads and older wolves and younger wolves and stuff like that, but there's not an alpha that stands out. What happens is the entire pack will protect itself, and there's usually 2 to 3 strong, young, healthy males that are at the front and at the very back of the pack whenever they go anywhere. But the thing is, there's not a definite leader. So we have been under the myth that there's always been, and it's bled into sports, and it's bled into all these other things like, are you an alpha? Are you a beta?
I mean, there's even.
And the thing is, they talk to men who don't like do this or do that. Oh, he's a beta because he doesn't do this and that. They took it all from the myth of an alpha wolf.
And as you know, as a wise wolf once said, if nobody's an alpha,
if nobody's an alpha,
is.
Then everybody is. Because you said a wise wolf, and I'm a wolf.
Oh, there you go. See,
the wolf.
He is the wolf, actually. So here's one. I'm a little bit younger than Eric here, so I've actually, this is something that was more applicable to my upbringing, but all growing up throughout the 80s and 90s, people were always worried about saying things like, oh, if you give your kid sugar, he'll be bouncing off the walls. I remember specifically, this is more of a caffeine thing, which actually is a stimulant, but I remember when I was younger, and this dude babysat me, they were still making Jolt Cola. They still made the original run of Jolt. He had some, and my mom specifically told him, do not give Vinny any of that shit. I don't want he'll be bouncing off the walls. As soon as she was out the door, crack went open, you know. So, and then she found out and got very mad. But the myth was that if you give a kid sugar, you give him candy, you give him soda, ice cream, or whatever, he'll be hyperactive, bouncing off the walls, ADHD, you know. Who knows? Really looking at the metabolic response, brain activity after giving kids a sucker and things like that, putting little electrodes on their, all the stuff that they
studied
do.
It.
Yeah, they studied it, and as it turns out, it doesn't make you think faster, it doesn't make you impulsive, it doesn't make you hyperactive, but specifically in terms of hyperactivity, which was the thing that everybody heard about, it's not going to make your kid bounce off the walls.
It was always blamed on sugar.
It was always blamed on sugar.
All right, the last myth. There was all different ways that mankind has figured out ways to torture other men over the years. You know, just hundreds of different ways to be cruel.
The rack, Mariah Carey.
No doubt. With Gwen Stefani. I hate her. But one of them that I read about, and you'd see diagrams, and you'd hear about different famous people that might have been killed with it and stuff, was known as the Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden was like a sarcophagus that stood upright, and you would put the prisoner inside, and then on the inside of, what would you call it,
the lid, I guess,
lid,
yeah,
you'd have these sharp poked,
it's like daggers,
yeah, and you would slam it, and when it closed, they were deep enough inside the sarcophagus that they would just stab all through the person. They would bleed out and they would die, and it was supposed to be a horrible death because you couldn't move. You're stuck inside it, and you're slowly bleeding out and stuff. Well, the thing is, it came out that those never existed. In the 1800s, a guy drew an idea of what a medieval torture device would be, and he wrote about it saying, this is called the Iron Maiden, stuff like that. But it never actually existed. There's no actual contemporary reports. There's nothing anywhere in history that ever said anybody ever died from that until he wrote that and did the drawing and stuff. And the weird thing that I was telling Vinny is, think about it. If I said Iron Maiden, today's people would not think torture device. They would think the hard rock band that's been around for like 50-something years, has sold tens of millions of records and stuff. But the thing is, they took their name from a drawing that he made of a fictional device that was supposed to be used for centuries to torture people, and it never existed. Just another one of those myths.
Piece of
so these are all just things that we've been told, that we've gone over, and stuff that aren't real. Now, you can call us liars. I guess they can call us liars. But do you really think I'd take the time and he'd take the time?
Bullshitters.
Yeah. Do you think we would actually take the time to lie about all these things? So if you say, my mom said I'd cramp if I went swimming, it's not your mom's fault. She was told that, right? But the thing is, it's not real. So we hope that you enjoy this episode of myths that we were all taught to believe and are full of BS.
Crap, not true.
Don't pee on those legs.
Fake.
But for the Two Old Pirates, I'm Eric.
I'm Vinny.
Peace out.